Getting ready to step into your career era? Set yourself apart with Adobe Creative Cloud Pro for students. Hone your skills with apps like Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, and more, powered with the latest in creative AI. Students save over 55% so you can build a portfolio you're proud of. Launch your future with Adobe Creative Cloud Pro for students. Visit adobe.com/students to learn more.
Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles, fluffy golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Wake up, Dick Morris! And I didn't get up. Just get up, we got a show to do. Now the real one.
Oh, that wasn't on the air. You should play the other one.
Mike's on. That was pretty funny, wasn't it, Dick?
Yeah, you should play it on the air. So, hi, welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Hi, Dick.
Hiya. This show has a lot of material in it, including a real explanation about some important issues that I think will help you. Let me begin the show by reading you a memo that Jim McLaughlin, his brother, sent me and sent around to the country about the latest polling on Trump, and it puts this political situation in a very interesting perspective. The McLaughlin brothers wrote, "In the wake of President Trump's unexpected 2016 victory over Hillary Clinton, the Republican establishment was caught unprepared for the election results." The Republican establishment. Key Republican leaders at the time, Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Leader Mitch McConnell, urged the president to prioritize repealing Obamacare over enacting his signature tax cut. This strategic misstep delayed the economic momentum that could have turned the tide in the 2018 elections.
Midterm elections.
Ultimately costing Republicans the House 40 seats and leading to politically motivated impeachment. Now in his second term, Trump has learned his lesson. He's taken a far more assertive approach. In his first 6 months of the new term, he's successfully driven passage of sweeping pro-growth tax reforms, widely regarded as a major legislative achievement. Our latest national survey of 1,000 likely voters, conducted July 9th through 14th, reveals strong public support for Trump in the wake of these reforms. His approval rating remains solid. Republicans lead in the generic ballot, which is who would you vote for, all things being equal, the Democrat or the Republican in your district. And optimism about the direction of the country is at its highest level since before the pandemic. A large majority supports key Trump policy stances, including deportation of illegal immigrants and preemptive strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. Media outlets across the political spectrum, including Newsmax and WABC, have acknowledged President Trump's accomplishments. Still, despite legislative wins and economic improvements, Trump's approval ratings face a ceiling for two reasons. One's a deeply divided political landscape.
Sure.
American voters now exist in two distinct political realities, pro-Trump and anti-Trump. Each camp consumes media with its own ideological echo chamber. And two, persistent media bias. The traditional media establishment continues to present a slanted, often hostile portrayal of the Trump presidency, regardless of the facts. As we'll discuss later in the show, this media environment is shifting because CBS just got knocked out of the media establishment and probably will become fair, and MSNBC, I think, is going to follow. Meantime, McLaughlin writes, our polling reflects this divide. 37% of voters live in the pro-Trump media ecosystem, regularly consuming Newsmax and Fox News. Meanwhile, 36%, same number, primarily watch CNN, MSNBC, Bloomberg, and CNBC. And the remaining 29% keep their sanity by being largely disengaged from political media.
They're probably smarter.
And when you go through each of the issues, McLaughlin's survey shows that this divide continues.
The national mood, right direction versus wrong track, 42% to 50%. Right-leaning media view is 69% say right direction. Left-leaning media view is 30% say right direction. Non-engaged, only 30% say right direction.
But that's a big change. The idea that almost half the voters say that we're headed for the right direction. And the generic congressional ballot, which is who would you vote for, all things being equal, the Democrat or the Republican in your district. Republicans 47, Democrats 42, a 5-point lead, which is much more than we took into the elections of 22 or 18. Right-leaning media, 72% favor Republicans, and left-leaning 61% favor Democrats. And then Trump job approval, 52% support, approve, 43 disapprove. But among right-leaners, 74 approve. Among left-leaners, 56 disapprove.
Well, hold on. Oh, disapprove. But still, that means 44 approve. If 56...
Well, they could be undecided, too.
9 engaged, split 44,
Yeah.
approved to 49. Okay.
And 40% say the economy is getting better. 53% say it's getting worse. Now, that's subject to big change, as we'll tell you in the next story. Those who say it's getting better or getting worse is flipping, and those who say it's getting better are increasing. There's strong support for the Iran strike. One of the clearest examples of media influence is seen in the public perception of Trump's legislative program. Although the reforms are designed to stimulate growth, opinions are sharply divided. 39% say it's basically a tax cut bill, and 39% say it's basically a spending bill. And overall support for the tax plan breaks even, 44 support, 42 oppose. Among independents and moderates, key groups in the midterms, opposition to the tax cuts outweighs support. The Democrats and their media allies are working hard to shape this narrative. Yet there is room for growth. When voters were asked whether or not they agreed with the sentiment that while I may not agree with everything Donald Trump and the MAGA movement say or stand for, I believe they're right about putting America and the American people first. Overall, that wins 67% approval. This suggests significant potential for the Trump coalition to expand headed into the midterm. But realizing that potential will require a focused effort, communicating the positive impacts of the Trump tax cuts, reaching beyond the conservative base, and telling his economic success story to disengaged and skeptical voters alike. The momentum is there. With continued leadership and clear messaging, President Trump and the GOP are well positioned to secure a midterm victory in 2026.
And he's got a great resume, what he's done, so it's there, for proof for him to
and nationally, you can see in the data that at the start of the Trump's term, there was still the hangover of pessimism from Biden's administration. And back in January and February, voters were convinced the U.S. was on the wrong track. And while they were happy that Trump won, that had not completely changed everything. But now you gradually see, not so gradually, you see strong evidence that is entirely flipping. Tell them, Doug.
The Wall Street Journal poll yesterday shows a striking 11-point surge in the numbers of Americans who rate the U.S. economy as excellent or good, the most positive outlook recorded in Journal survey since 2021. This surge in economic optimism appears to be giving President Trump a critical boost in his political standing, even as voters voice concern with key aspects of his domestic and trade agenda. 47% of registered voters now view the economy in a positive term, up to just 36% in April.
Yeah, that growth from 37 to 56 is huge. 36 to 47 is huge.
Huge.
It's enormous. Once it cracks 50, you've got a whole other reality coming.
This marks a significant break in a years-long trend of economic pessimism that has defined much of the post-pandemic era. Meanwhile, the percentage of respondents who rated the economy as not good or poor dropped to 51% from 63% just 3 months ago. This economic mood shift has narrowed the public's overall pessimism. In April, by a margin of 26 points, more voters said the economy was getting worse than said it was getting better. Now that gap has now shrunk to 8 points, still negative, but notably improved. The number of Americans reporting that inflation is causing them serious financial hardship has also declined. So that's what's important, what we see.
So we listen to ourselves and we listen to the statistics. And sometimes we're shocked when we do the polling and we look at what people believe. But in this case, they're behind the curve of actual events, but they're catching up very quickly.
And the tariffs are working also. Volkswagen's 2025 first half financial report shows tariffs imposed by Trump as a part of his overall trade strategy cost the company $1.3 billion. I would say they got to get on the stick if they want to continue.
So
when we get back,
so we're really at an inflection point now, where the American people are coming to the consensus that there's great economic growth in the economy under Trump. They're not there yet. There's still latent pessimism. It still is a little close to 50-50. But we're about to cross that divide. We made huge progress in crossing it over the last 3 months.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
You know,
progress.
it's funny, pessimists always borrow money from a pessimist. They probably never think you're going to pay them back anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So when we get back,
we'll talk about the scandal, the Iran, the Obama-Russiagate scandal.
Okay.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
I'm going to give the call-in number, Dick, okay? 800, the call-in number is 800-848-9222. That is 800-848-9222. Okay, go, Dick.
For those who have amnesia, in this case, pleasant amnesia, and don't remember in detail the events of the Russia scandal that now is coming to light, let me just summarize them for you. Eileen, my wife, and I wrote a book called Rogue Spooks in 2016 that laid all of this out, and all of it has come to pass. Hillary lost the 2016 election in a big surprise. Everybody thought she was going to win. And the bureaucracy and the Washington establishment were absolutely confident that Hillary was going to win. And when Trump won, they absolutely melted down. They thought, wow, this is incredible, totally different, and they worried that the whole country would go to hell as a result of it. So they decided, really, the leaders of the Obama administration, in closing days, decided to mount a coup d'etat, basically to functionally stop Trump from taking office. They couldn't stop him from taking the oath of office, but they decided to put enough evidence out there so that they could immediately begin impeachment proceedings with a view toward throwing him out of office within a year.
God.
And to do that, they needed some material. And Hillary's campaign conveniently supplied it to them. Hillary's campaign had paid a guy named Christopher Steele, a former British spy, a tidy sum of money to go ahead and do a dossier of how the Russians had colluded with Trump to help deliver the election to him. Totally fictitious narrative, never happened. The meetings they said took place never took place, and the whole thing was fiction. But it was fiction and was published as a dossier, as a memo from the Democratic Party. Then the issue was, how do you get it into the public mainstream? How do you get that into the dialogue? So Comey, the head of the FBI, and Brennan, the head of the CIA, got together and decided that what they would do is they would have a White House meeting to develop a briefing for the president, his daily intelligence briefing, and include in that briefing the information in the dossier. And therefore, once it was in the dossier and once it was in the briefing, it would then be in the public domain, in the bloodstream, and then the media would cover it, and the administration could say, look, we're just telling you what the finding of our intelligence community
in
told
the
us.
bloodstream. That's good.
And it would go all out from there. The problem is that the intelligence community, the actual operatives, said, no, this isn't what we found. We have no evidence of any collusion. There's nothing here. And they wrote a report that said that. And when Brennan and Comey saw that report at the White House meeting in January of 2017, they said, oh, no.
Shelf that,
Take
baby.
that out of there and report the opposite, that there is clear evidence that there's been collusion.
Now, didn't Comey write a little report right there and said there was something going on after he...
Exactly, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
So all of this is now public, and the report went to Obama. Obama, in turn, passed it on to Trump because it was allegedly developed to prepare him for the presidency, and it entered the bloodstream from there.
Yeah, but didn't they delete a lot of stuff they did not give to Trump?
They changed it completely. So now Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, said that newly declassified documents provide sufficient grounds to prosecute former President Obama and senior administration officials over the Russia collusion narrative pushed after the 2016 election. Gabbard said the evidence shows top Obama national security advisor, and this is a quote, manufactured and politicized in order to justify the FBI investigation into the Russia-Trump ties, setting the stage for what she called a treasonous conspiracy. Gabbard said there must be indictments for those responsible, no matter how powerful they are. Gabbard confirmed that she is formally referring Obama's administration official to the Justice Department as part of a criminal investigation. We're going to provide everything we have to the Department of Justice for that direct purpose, she said. In my view, we have the evidence to be able to move forward to prosecute and indict those responsible. Gabbard emphasized that her goal was accountability, and she warned against using political status to protect those who allegedly abused power to interfere in an election. According to the newly released document, senior Obama-era officials allegedly manipulated intelligence reports to falsely portray Russia as interfering to help Trump, setting off years of political investigations and media hysteria. These assessments were central to the launch of Crossfire Hurricane, the FBI's now debunked investigation into the Trump-Russia collusion, later exposed by Special Counsel John Durham as baseless and politically driven. The Obama administration cooked up manufactured intelligence, Gabbard said, to suggest that Trump's victory was the result of election interference. Gabbard spoke about a years-long coup d'etat, against Trump after he defeated Hillary in 2016. She told Bartiromo the actions of the Obama administration after the 2016 election were nothing short of historic. The implications of this are frankly nothing short of historic, he said. Over 100 documents that we released really detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office after Trump had already gotten elected. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue that is so serious that it should concern every single American because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. What we saw occur here, as the documents we are releasing show, was that we had a sitting president of the United States and his cabinet leadership team, quite frankly, were not happy with the fact that Trump had won the election, that the American people had chosen him. So they decided they'd do everything possible to undermine his ability to do that. So creating this piece of manufactured intelligence that claims that Russia helped Donald Trump to get elected contradicted every assessment that had been previously made in the months leading up to the election that said exactly the opposite, that Russia had neither the intent nor the capability to hack the U.S. election. Christopher Steele, an ex-British spy, authored a false dossier that was a key source behind the FBI's investigation into the Trump campaign. The debunked dossier was a centerpiece in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA warrant applications directed at Trump campaign officials. Special Counsel John Durham concluded in a May 23 report that the FBI used uncorroborated intelligence to launch its probe into the Trump campaign and was unable to verify the claims made in the Steele dossier. FBI analyst Brian Orten testified that the FBI offered Steele $1 million if he could corroborate the claims in the dossier.
Wow.
But he never did. Gabbard continued, the effect of what Obama and his senior national security team did was to subvert the will of the American people, undermining our Democratic Party, and enacting what would be essentially a years-long coup d'etat against President Trump, who was duly elected by the American people. The Clinton campaign and Democratic National Committee was fined by the Federal Elections Commission in 22 for their involvement in the now discredited dossier.
Wow.
So those are the basic facts of this case. And it now goes to the Department of Justice, which will analyze it and decide what to do. I believe that it's very likely that Comey, head of the FBI, and Brennan, head of the CIA, will both be indicted and I hope convicted. Brennan, in particular, for testimony he gave Congress, where he lied and he said the exact opposite of what, in fact, the intelligence community
So there's
had
contempt
decided.
of Congress right there.
Perjury, right.
And as Trump said the other day, Obama might not do as poorly because of what the
Criminal
Supreme
immunity.
Court
Yeah, we'll get to that in a
talked
minute.
about.
So the
You know,
ju-
when you think about it, Dick, what Trump achieved his first run around, right? Imagine what he would have achieved if he didn't have to go through all this stuff.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, you're talking about 2 impeachments. You're talking about a constant din of media coverage for which they won Pulitzer Prizes that they've got to give back and were given international plaudits and praise because the whole establishment wanted to get rid of Donald Trump.
And to think he got rid of ISIS, that alone should be a legacy for this guy. He got rid of ISIS. He got his energy independent or pretty close to it. What else? There's a ton of
All
stuff.
kinds of stuff.
Unbelievable.
Now, the Justice Department has formed a strike force to assess the evidence Gabbard provided. And the DOJ said the formation of a task force to investigate the potential next legal steps may stem from Gabbard's recent declassification of records, suggesting that Obama administration's manufactured intelligence to form the narrative that the then-candidate Donald Trump was colluding with Russia to influence the 2016 election. But Trump says correctly that Obama himself may escape criminal prosecution for this because Trump saved his butt In fact, Trump said that Obama owes him a tremendous debt of gratitude. He said that because he went to the Supreme Court and argued that a president cannot be held criminally liable.
A sitting president.
An ex-president.
No, but
cannot
of
be
what
held
he did.
sitting
Right.
liable
Right.
for stuff he did while he was in office.
Right. That's what
And that which related to the phony scandal about FBI files now can protect Obama in this serious scandal about Russia intel. Trump said that on Friday that Obama's criminal acts will probably benefit from the Supreme Court ruling on national immunity. President Obama laid the groundwork for a years-long coup, but the Supreme Court last July ruled that former presidents have some immunity from prosecution. The decision at the time extended a delay in the Washington criminal case on charges against Trump that he plotted to overturn the 2020 election loss. While speaking to reporters outside the White House, Trump was asked whether the High Court's immunity ruling could help Obama avoid potential prosecution over Russiagate. It probably helps a lot, the immunity ruling, Trump told reporters, but it doesn't help the people around him at all. But it probably helps him a lot. He's done criminal acts, so there's no question about it. But he has immunity, and it's probably helped him a lot. Gabbard told Newsmax on Thursday that it's not difficult for her to determine that the Obama administration and its members engaged in a treasonous conspiracy to undermine Trump's first term. So that's what's going on. Now, it looks like the Republican senators, led by Lindsey Graham, who wouldn't have done this without Trump's authorization, are calling for a special prosecutor in this investigation, and their effort to do that is probably because the politicization of any case involving Obama would be so heavy that they would need the independence of a special counsel to be able to at least show that it's independent of political influence. Doug?
Where are we, Dick? Which number?
We're number 7, the Trump tariff. Trump has been going around, as you know, imposing tariffs on everything that walks and breathes. And Trump yesterday announced that he was considering using the revenues from this tariff to give a rebate to the American citizens.
Speaking with reporters in the White House, hold on a second. In the White House lawn, Trump was asked about the possibility of rebates with all of that revenue coming in tens and tens of billions of dollars. We're thinking about that. Actually, Trump said, we have so much money coming in, we're thinking about a little rebate. But the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're rethinking that about the rebate. A few seconds later, the president said, a little rebate for people of certain income level might be very nice. According to data published by the U.S. Treasury, revenues from custom duties reached $64 billion in the second quarter this year and $47 billion more than the same period last year.
So it's very possible that there is a check in the mail to you of a refund, of a rebate based on these tariffs. We have to realize that the whole debate over the year, and Doug and I kept saying this on the radio show, about the deficit and swelling the national debt was totally wrong, that in fact the debt was dropping and the revenue was pouring in from the tariffs. That's not why Trump imposed the tariffs, but it's the unexpected dividend from the tariffs. He imposed the tariffs to make sure that other countries would not discriminate against the United States and would let our products and services in without penalizing with high tariffs. The U.S. tariff averaged about 3.6% before Trump went to town. Now Trump has increased this to a minimum of 10%, and in most cases 15 or 20 or 25, or some cases even 50%. And while this will assure a level playing field for the U.S. in foreign countries, it has the ancillary benefit of encouraging companies to move to the United States so their products are not subject to our tariffs, and provide revenue to the U.S. Treasury, which is what a tariff does. It's a tax, and basically they pay the money to the Treasury. And Trump is saying use that money to bring down the national debt, but also very possibly give revenue to people. Now, when we get back, a mammoth and very important story, a huge change. The U.S. is promoting stable coins, a new form of currency, as a holder of the U.S. debt. We'll talk about that when we come back, and if your eyes glaze over, we'll explain what a stable coin is.
And I understand.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Okay, fasten your seatbelts. This is complicated but very important. China views the U.S. military and dollar supremacy as the two pillars that support the United States' global leadership. Prevailing on either of those will enable Beijing to replace Washington at the pinnacle of power. For years, the U.S. has been on the defensive as China established its own renminbi renminbi, that's the name of the currency, based payment system, and led the BRICS group countering U.S.-led Western democracy. BRICS members obtain payments in renminbi through exporting commodities to China. In return, they use the Chinese currency to buy goods from China, such as electric vehicles. The trade cycle has significantly contributed to the renminbi's 4% share in global payments. Although the share is still small, the Chinese Communist Party is accustomed to making efforts for decades, if not 100 years, to sabotage the United States. Beijing also holds a significant amount of U.S. debt. That means that the Chinese regime can sell off U.S. Treasury bonds to drive up interest rates the U.S. has to pay on these debts if no other buyers are able to absorb the volume of Chinese releases. So China can dump our debt onto the market, force up the interest rates we have to pay to have somebody lend us the money, and that in turn screws up our economy. Meanwhile, the U.S. national debt is approaching $37 billion. The annual interest surpassed defense spending last year. The dollar's supremacy, based on its status as the world's reserve currency and the primary currency for global transactions, has enabled the U.S. to borrow more at a lower rate. Everything hangs in the balance if the dollar's special status is compromised. At a cabinet meeting in July, the president said BRICS aims to destroy the dollar so another country can take over the standard. If we lost the world standard dollar, that would be like losing a war, a major world war, Trump added. We'd no longer be the same country any longer. Fortunately, a brand new law passed on July 18th neutralizes many of these risks and may provide solution. It's going to enable a new group of creditors of U.S. Treasuries with holdings that rival China's. It also turns the table on Beijing, rendering the renminbi irrelevant in global trade. It's called the Genius Act, known as the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act. And to find stablecoins as a means of payment or settlement and establishes a federal regulatory framework for them. All permit issuers will have to back their issuance with either cash or U.S. Treasury bonds. Stablecoins, which basically the U.S. is floating as its new global currency, are digital money pegged to a fiat currency on a one-to-one basis. They'll be worth what the government says they're worth. The issuers guarantee holders that they convert the money back at any time. Therefore, stablecoins can provide decentralization and cost-effectiveness of digital money, combined with the stability of a traditional fiat currency. Sam Nunn, a U.S. businessman with decades of experience in advising foreign investors in China, says stablecoins are a creative response to the challenges Beijing poses to the dollar. Stablecoins can theoretically enable unlimited purchase of U.S. treasuries. The sky is the limit. Stablecoin issuers generate revenue by investing the dollars they receive in return for digital tokens, and they've already emerged as a significant holder of U.S. debt. Currently, they hold more than $120 billion in treasury bills. So you get that. The government gives them a stable coin, which is a new unit of currency, and they can change that in for dollars.
But it's wait a minute. But it's backed by a dollar.
Yeah.
Whatever they give,
Backed by a dollar. That's right.
By physical dollar.
That's right. And the sky's the limit. And they can generate revenue by investing the dollars they receive in exchange for digital currency, digital tokens.
Mm-hmm. And they can get back whenever they want, or however that works.
That's correct.
They can get back their dollar.
Currently, they hold more than $120 billion in treasury bills. If this is new to you, pay close attention because this is important. This is probably the most significant thing Trump has done. Their holdings are expected to increase to more than $1 trillion in treasuries by 2028. That means that stablecoin issuers may become the largest holders of treasury bills, more than China or Japan. With the Genius Act, the United States has also officially staked its claim in the world of digital wealth. Adding the new laws extended the U.S. dollar's supremacy in the physical world to the digital world. Today, physical assets still dominate global wealth. However, digital assets, or wealth converted from real-world assets via tokenization, may reach 30 to 50 trillion by 2030. That means that what they do is they take wealth and they issue tokens based on that wealth, which are then convertible into money anytime you want. The Genius Act has effectively converted the U.S. dollar to the Earth dollar, or the money of the planet, giving the U.S. a significant advantage over China. By contrast, the renminbi, Chinese currency, is closely controlled and still doesn't offer the same level of liquidity. That goes against the decentralization benefit of digital currencies. Hence, the digital yuan, Chinese currency, introduced in 2020, hasn't gained traction. In his view, the Earth dollar has the potential to render China's currency irrelevant in global trade in the future, and Beijing is now on the defensive. This is such a crucial thing.
Wow.
It's amazing. Trump did this after he got his BBB passed, and it essentially sets up a new unit of currency called the stablecoin, which is backed by the U.S. dollar, backed by money deposited in the Treasury. But it's a new currency, and therefore it will continue. And the U.S. can use that currency to buy as much in digital assets or wealth as it wishes. The sky is the limit.
You know, in my mind, Dick, and maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but it almost feels like I have money in the bank and then I use a debit card. You know, that's digital, right?
Right.
In a sense, that's all I get out of this. You know,
Yeah.
that it's not that far from what we do as we do now with the debit card. And
That's
the
a
credit
good.
card.
That's a good metaphor.
Is it? Because I'm not sure it is.
but the idea is that the digital currency, the stable coin, will replace the dollar in world trade, and that if China decides to dump the debt, that is to continue, not roll it over, we don't have to run around the world looking for other people to lend us money. We have stablecoin that completely gives us all of that.
Now I get it.
So it's
Oh, that's the difference. That's
it
real.
means stablecoin borrowers may become the largest holders of Treasury bills. Incredible change. The sky is the limit.
And what is this Earth What does he call it here?
They call it Earth dollars.
Now, why is that just a
It's
name?
just another nickname.
Right,
for it.
right. Is that a Trump
Stablecoin-
nickname?
Yeah. Stablecoin users generate revenue by investing the dollars they receive in exchange for digital tokens that have already emerged as a significant holder of U.S. Treasury debt. Stablecoins can theoretically enable unlimited purchase of U.S. Treasuries. The sky's the limit. He uses an alien. Sky's the limit. So this is
Earth
amazing.
dollar, sky's the limit. This is Trump.
This is incredible. So the threat that China will foreclose on our debt and drive us out of business is now gone away. It's completely countered.
And speaking of sky's the
Genius
limit,
Act.
and speaking of sky's the limit, when we come back, we have a Paramount merger with Skydance.
Yeah, well, that's crucial too, because it means that in addition to the economy turning around, the media is moving away from the left. For those who have complained about leftist bias in the media, it is changing before our eyes. And Doug will explain how.
When we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show
Entertaining and informative.
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Just as America's perception of the economy is changing, and we're going from a 50-50 perception to one of tremendous positives for Trump, we are now also seeing for the first time a crack in the wall of the establishment media.
This is beautiful.
This is absolutely crucial.
FCC Chairman Brendan Carr hailed the merger as an opportunity to bring more balance to a once-storied CBS network. Americans no longer trust the legacy national news media to report fully, accurately, and fairly. It's time for a change, Carr said. The Federal Communications Commission on Thursday officially approved the $8.4 billion merger between Paramount Global and Skydance Media, removing the final regulatory barrier to a historic merger that reshapes the American media landscape. The approval by the FCC clears the path for independent studio Skydance to assume control of vast entertainment empire, including CBS, Paramount Pictures, and Paramount Plus streaming service, and a portfolio of cable networks such as MTV, Nickelodeon, and Comedy Central. So they had a big group right there. The deal, expected to close by August 7th, marks the culmination of months of contentious negotiations, lawsuits, and internal upheaval at Paramount. We're going to celebrate now, a source close to Skydance said. We're all beat up, just exhausted, but it was all well worth it. The FCC's...
Before we go on, Doug. What this means is that the ABC, NBC, and CBS are now broken up, and CBS has gone away from them, taken over by Paramount. And Paramount is led by Skydance CEO David Ellison and investment partner Redbird Capital. That the new entity would commit to unbiased journalism and enforce new standards to assure editorial neutrality at CBS News. Among the stipulations in the deal was a pledge to appoint an ombudsman to independently evaluate complaints related to bias or journalistic conduct. Carr, the head of the FCC, wrote,
Americans no longer trust the legacy national news media to fully report accurate and fairly. It's time for a change. That's why I welcome Skydance's commitment to make significant changes at the once storied CBS broadcast network instead of facts, right? The FCC's approval also includes the transfer of licenses for 28 CBS-owned and operated stations to the new ownership structure, a procedural but crucial component of the merger's complexion. Founded by David Ellison, son of Oracle billionaire Larry Ellison, Skydance has produced high-grossing Hollywood franchises, including Top Gun Maverick and Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Under the merger agreement, Skydance and Redbird Capital will acquire National Amusements, the parent company of Paramount, from longtime media executive Shari Redstone in a transaction valued at $1.75 billion in cash. Redstone is expected to step down from the board of newly formed Paramount Skydance Corp. According to the New York Post report, once the transaction is finalized, David Ellison will take over as chairman and CEO of the merged company. Jeff Shell, former chief executive of NBC Universal, will serve as president, bringing decades of media experience to the new leadership team. The merger signals a major power shift in the entertainment industry.
And the news industry.
Yeah, with Skydance poised to lead the evolution of the company, once considered the most iconic media institution in the United States.
Now, all of this happened at the same time that Trump is suing.
That's why.
Sued Paramount and CBS for media bias in the campaign. The particular episode Trump is referring to was an episode of 60 Minutes in which CBS completely edited and totally basically rewrote
the interview with Kirkakla.
Yeah.
Right.
And it made her sound reasonable, and it took care, changed her script.
Right. It was a $16 million lawsuit plus $20 million they had to add to Trump's MAGA alliance causes. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was actually $36 million. It wasn't just 16.
Trump claimed that the actual value of the settlement was $36 million, noting that the new owners also agreed to commit $20 million in public service advertising supporting MAGA-aligned causes. So this is a gigantic change. It means that one of the three elements of the media establishment, and the oldest one and the dominant one, CBS, now is effectively removed. And this will send shockwaves through the media industry and probably lead to the divestiture of CNN and of MSNBC.
Wow.
Those networks are probably destined for major change as well. It's hard to see how they could continue with CBS basically leaving their ranks.
And now, with social media, you got X, and what other social platforms that are going conservative? You have X, and now with this happening, you have broadcast going conservative and cable news. So there's a big change coming on.
Put this in perspective. In a recent survey, 36% of Americans said they get their news primarily from cable.
36?
36.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and Newsmax. 36% said cable. 29% said from traditional news outlets, NBC, ABC, CBS.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so cable is far more significant than the broadcast media. And now the cable is being changed because CBS is now moving to the center, and you'll probably get similar motion from CNN and MSNBC. So the fundamental political reality in this country, the bias toward the left, is now basically changing. And credit Donald Trump in part for his lawsuit against Paramount and against CBS.
Beautiful.
There have been left-wing doctoring of interviews and stuff over the decades, and the right has put up with it. Trump said, no, I'm not putting up with it, I'm suing. And as part of this $36 million settlement of his lawsuit, he's been able to force the FCC to approve this merger.
All right, we're on a hard break, Dick. We'll see you on the next part of the hour.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show. What a time to be on the radio. What a time to have a news show.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
It's like, Dick, it's like the world stopped. And it's like the world car stopped, threw it in reverse, threw out the kids in the car that were making trouble, put it in drive, picked up the adults, and moving on. The world just stopped.
What happened, what we reported in the last hour, is that the U.S. currency has now been changed to a digital stablecoin currency. Secondly, that the media landscape has changed and CBS has moved from left to center. And American attitudes toward the economy are fundamentally changing and going from pessimistic to optimistic.
Amazing.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. The world stopped and we woke up and said, whoa, everything's different. It's unbelievable. All right. Now, thanks to this, a pro-growth America First agenda was seeking a CapEx comeback. Business equipment production jumped from 11% annualized in Q2. Is that quarter, the second quarter? Ooh. After a huge 23% gain in Q1, the strongest comeback, back-to-back growth in 97.
What that is the BBB, the Big Beautiful Bill.
Right.
Get all sorts of tax advantages. You can now expense immediately your capital improvement. Right. So if you're a business and you want to install a new computer system or a new technology system, you don't have to wait 7 years to take it off on your taxes. You can do it immediately. And that resulted in a 23% increase in business equipment purchases. Incredible, unbelievable.
This bill is just jump-starting investments. It's lifting productivity, wages, and living standards. Blue-collar paychecks are rising fast, second only to Trump.
The first term.
All right.
Okay, so, well, I'm sorry to hit you with all this, guys, but it's
too bad. Too bad.
It's what's out there. The U.S. has signed a trade deal with Japan that is totally revolutionary. And if one of the things you've nursed in your mind is the idea that Japan discriminates against the United States, cross that off your list. I ran a campaign that got a prime minister of Japan elected 20 years ago. And the big thing we understood was that the efforts that the Japanese business imposed to limit American imports ripped off the consumers in Japan. Like they couldn't buy American lumber. They had to buy lumber from Japan, which is so limited. Mm-hmm. And as a result, housing costs in Japan were way too high. And the agenda of the consumer movement in Japan was essentially the same as the trade movement in the United States. Now Trump has succeeded in getting Japan to concede all of these issues. The Trump-Japan trade agreement announced on July 22nd has been many things to many people, controversial, bold, unprecedented, but it is above all brilliant. It redefines the architecture of global trade, establishing a model that future U.S. deals would do well to emulate. Through this agreement, Trump has created something strikingly novel, a virtual sovereign wealth fund, capitalized not by U.S. taxpayers, but by our closest allies, paid for by Japan. This is not mere diplomatic optics or bureaucratic tinkering. It's an economic transformation with metaphysical depth, a reconfiguration of what it means to negotiate on behalf of a sovereign nation. Let's begin with the fundamentals. Trade deficits have long haunted American politics, most often serving as cudgels wielded by opposition factions. Economists debate their significance. Politicians weaponize them. Meanwhile, the public rightly senses that an imbalance exists where goods flow in factories and goods flow in and factories shut down. Traditional trade deals attempt to remedy this by offering future concessions including market access or vague commitments to level the playing field. But these promises are paper tigers, easily ignored, impossible to enforce. Trump's Japan deal breaks that pattern by inverting it. Instead of asking for concessions in the future, he demanded compensation up front. A $550 billion infusion of Japanese capital to finance American infrastructure and industry.
What does that mean?
Imagine, if you will, well, it means that Japan is now going to pay
Forward
in the future for investment in U.S. capital and U.S. business.
Got it.
This is a paradigm shift. Imagine, if you will, wealthy guests who's long overstayed their welcome, consuming more than they contribute, finally agreeing to help renovate the house. That's what Japan has agreed to.
That's not a guest, that's a pest.
Rather than merely apologizing for the trade imbalance, they provided a signing bonus that allows the U.S. to reinvest in itself without begging Congress for the money. Critics may ask, why would Japan agree to such terms?
Right.
The answer is simple. First, Trump's judicious application of a 15% tariff on Japanese imports, a strategic retreat from higher threatened rates, signaling credible resolve. Secondly, Japan understands the geopolitical stakes. A strong, self-sufficient U.S. is the linchpin of Pacific stability. Financing American energy, manufacturing, and artificial intelligence is not charity. It's insurance for Japan against Chinese hegemony. But the structure of the deal makes it revolutionary. Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, explained that this is not a conventional investment where Japan chooses products or demands managerial control. Instead, the U.S. selects the infrastructure priorities: nuclear plants, LNG terminals, roads, AI labs, shipyards. The Japanese capital follows the American blueprint, not the reverse. You know, this reminds me of the Marshall Plan, where Europe told America where to put its money to stimulate European recovery after the war. Once built, these assets are leased to American operators, assuring that control, innovation, and job creation remain American. This profit-sharing arrangement grants 90% of the profits to the U.S. and only 10% to Japan. Here the analogy to a sovereign wealth fund becomes apt. Most nations fund such investment vehicles using oil revenues. They set up a sovereign wealth fund, like Norway, Saudi Arabia do, or tax surpluses like Singapore does. The U.S. has never had one, for good reason. Entrusting vast capital to Washington bureaucrats would be something like asking arsonists to guard a match factory.
Did you just make that up?
No. Trump's model resolves this problem by using foreign capital and American discretion, merging strategic capital allocation with democratic accountability. The American people, through their elected executive, determine how the funds are used, and unlike typical deficit spending, this model produces assets, not liabilities. Historical context vindicates this approach. This is what I was saying. In 1947, Secretary of State George Marshall proposed a $13 billion recovery plan to rebuild post-war Europe. The logic was clear: help our allies stabilize, and America will benefit from global stability and trade. Trump has flipped the script. Now it's our allies who invest in us, stabilizing American strength as a bulwark against global disorder. Instead of the vague hope of future returns, the deal provides hard assets and measurable conflicts. And let's not ignore the multiplier effects. Every road paved, every plane constructed, every ship built will generate American employment, tax revenue, and technological innovation. This is industrial policy without central planning, capitalism without cronyism, foreign capital, domestic execution, American profits, Japanese gratitude, and all of it is orchestrated by a team that understands that power respects leverage, not platitudes. So this is basically a Marshall Plan in reverse. Japan is now funding the major capital improvements in the United States. And the reason they're doing it is China. They're understanding that China is the threat to global stability, that China is particularly a threat to Japan in the Pacific, and they want to build up the United States so that it can become an effective counterweight. This is an amazing, amazing achievement. It's comparable to the formation of NATO, really. Amazing.
Well, two strong guys standing against China is better than one.
Yeah, but not just standing, but putting up $500 billion to do it.
That's amazing.
That's $500 billion we're talking about.
I wonder how that conversation started with Trump. Yeah, I can imagine. Listen, here's what we're going to do.
This is the most amazing achievement I can imagine. I mean, absolutely incredible, unbelievable.
The guy's brilliant. I was at a party yesterday, and most people like Trump, but yeah, every once in a while, oh, he's horrible, he's this and that. Just listen to. I told him, listen to our show tomorrow.
Unbelievable.
It is really unbelievable.
Okay,
we're going to take a break in a minute.
When we get back, we talked earlier in one of the earlier shows about the issue of central bank issued digital currency, basically to replace the dollar with a debit card. The House of Representatives has now banned central bank issued digital currency, a big, big issue we talked about and we worried about, and looks like Trump has succeeded in stopping this in its tracks. When we come back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Is this amazing, Dick, or what?
So how come the other media isn't saying this?
Yeah,
how come you have to go to ABC on Sunday afternoon to get this? And the answer is very simple. Not media bias, it's media stupidity. The other stations and their people don't understand it. They don't know what they're talking about. They read this stuff and their eyes glaze over.
They're talking about transgender stuff.
So they report faithfully the Paramount deal, and they report faithfully the U.S.-Japan trade deal, and they report faithfully the polling of economic optimism. It's not bias. They just don't know what the hell they're talking about. And
so they don't expound on it. They don't get into it.
When it comes to explaining it to people, they can't because they don't get it.
Right. It's hard to get, Dick.
You see me studying this stuff during the week.
Oh, it's unbelievable. You know, I always say, changing the world one Dick Morris at a time.
So there is a proposal floating around for a central bank issued digital currency, CBDC. And Republicans have been opposing it because they say that this could be used to surveil American financial transactions. There's a potential for abuse and corruption. The Federal Reserve Board issued a study of CBDCs outlining their risks and benefits, but it was biased in favor of its benefits. The central bank currency wanted it to continue. And the Fed said it could make cross-border payments easier and improve access to banking. But the fact of the matter is that it could fundamentally change the structure of the U.S. financial system, altering the roles and responsibilities of the private sector and the central bank. A government-issued digital dollar, especially one that could bear interest, could drive consumers away from commercial bank accounts. But the problem is that it completely makes transparent everything you're doing. It's a system the Chinese use to control their consumers.
Right, like a credit report.
Yeah, like a debit card.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
So you want to buy a pack of chewing gum, you have to charge it on your debit card, and that shows up on your credit statement. And then the fear is that the Chinese government uses it to discriminate against people and allot favors to those who don't do things that are ideologically objectionable.
It's a lot like the internet looks at what you're buying or selling or talking about, and they know your profile
Right.
also.
It's government-controlled programmable money that, if designed without privacy protections of cash, could give the federal government the ability to surveil and restrict Americans' transactions and monitor every aspect of our daily lives.
Screw that.
That's House Minority Whip Tom Emmer, who said. In contrast to cash, which is essentially untraceable, a CBDC would likely leave a digital record in some form. If the government pursued a CBDC, it would have to balance concerns about privacy with legal safeguards to curb its use in money laundering. Many lawmakers have cited China's digital experience as a worrying example. Tech and China experts have raised concerns that the Chinese government could use its digital currency to track individual transactions, otherwise scoop up tranches of consumer data. Other Republicans have issued starker warnings about CBDC. CBDC is an existential threat to Western civilization. Alongside other digital financial systems pioneered in the private sector, the Fed launched FedNow, an interest payment system that can operate 24/7. Banks can opt to use the service, whose major clients include J.P. Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo. This essentially bans that practice. It makes it impossible and illegal for banks to issue a digital currency based on the Federal Reserve, and dampen hopes that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, whose value is pegged to a reference asset like the U.S. dollar, could become the primary form of digital monies. You wouldn't need stablecoins. You wouldn't need cryptocurrencies if you had a digital U.S. currency. That's one of the strong arguments in its favor, but now the House has turned decidedly against it. Trump decided that he was opposed to the centrally bank-issued digital currency because it would permit unbelievable invasion of the privacy of Americans and lay the basis really for a totalitarian system.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that happened the other day.
So give us an overall look at this thing, real quick, abbreviated.
So the House has stopped a threat which is that would render all of our financial dealings transparent,
Right.
and let the federal government put its nose in anything it wanted.
Got it.
In addition, we have completely changed America's attitude toward the economy, and it is now moving decisively toward optimism. In addition to all of that, there is a new game in town, stablecoins, which are now replacing the Treasury bills as instruments of U.S. debt, rendering us invulnerable to the potential of China refusing to pay our debt. And I forgot, CBS has now been taken over by Paramount, which is under the head of its CEO,
Which is Skydance and
Skydance, who is basically pro-Trump. And it eliminates the possibility of this media bias. By the way, CBS agreed to end its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs as part of the
DEI.
deal.
Charlie Kirk calls it "didn't earn it."
Yeah, that's right.
DEI didn't
That's
earn
right.
it.
Do we have time for one more, or are we?
Where are we, Lux? Yeah, we're good. We got
Okay,
some
good.
time.
Okay. During its latest summit in Brazil, the BRICS member states issued a joint statement on July 6th criticizing tariffs. So there's this effort by BRICS, the countries led by China and Russia, to try to eliminate the dollar as the central means of global commerce. Well, Trump killed that. This is in the third hour.
This is
second
great.
hour.
This is great.
Trump killed it completely. He said any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS would receive an additional 10% tariff. So what he's saying is you can pay for your imports to the United
What
States
a different dollar.
with Chinese currency,
Yeah.
but you got to pay a 10% tariff on top of it, which means nobody's going to do it.
All right.
Trump said BRICS wants to destroy the dollar so another country can take over and be standard. He said if this happened, we wouldn't be the same country any longer. And by this move that is so freaking brilliant, he said, okay, if you want to import anything into the United States, you got to use dollars. You can't use yuan.
Yeah, we talked to him last week. We have some people in Africa that worried about the dollar in Africa. And we said, Mr. President, the dollar in Africa, and he threw this at us. He goes, listen, I'm throwing these tariffs out there. That dollar's going to get strong because no one's going to deal with it. It was great. The guy is brilliant.
He said it's the way everybody has to use the dollar because otherwise they can't sell this stuff in the United States.
That's it.
Unbelievable. Good God.
And if you use the other monies from different countries, I'm going to hit you with a bigger tariff also.
Yeah.
Even if you're not buying from us, if I see you using it, this guy's he's a boss. He's the boss.
Okay, redistricting. Normally, you redistrict the congressional districts every 10 years when the census comes out, and the Justice Department under Biden worked very hard to make sure that there were enough blacks, enough Hispanics, enough Asians in each of the congressional districts so as to give the Democrats a chance of taking over the House. Now Republicans in Texas are threatening to redraw congressional district lines to give Republicans up to 5 extra House seats. Normally, congressional lines are only altered after the 10-year census. But Trump fired off first salvo this month when he said that vying to pick up 5 seats in Texas, as Governor Abbott holds a special session this week to consider redistricting among other priorities. Republicans in Washington are bracing for the traditional headwinds that accompany the president's party in power during midterm elections, and mid-cycle map redrawing in deep red Texas could help blunt potential Republican losses next year. This is driving the Democrats berserk, as you'd expect.
Of course.
They're pressing blue state governors to redraw their House lines in response to what Texas is doing, warning that the party's only chance to flip control of the lower chamber could be at stake. Democrats are quick to maintain the midterm redistricting, a rare move defying the traditional decennial process, is a rotten trend to emulate and a bad precedent to set. But the urgency in what Democrats see as an existential fight against Trump demands a bending of the rules, so they're going to fight fire with fire. Now, the official justification for Texas's redistricting was that the DOJ said the district lines are illegal as they now are because race was a factor in how they were drawn. The Supreme Court says you can't do that. The suggestion was that the process discriminated against white voters. 4 districts in particular currently constitute unconstitutional coalition districts, and we urge the state of Texas to rectify these race-based considerations, the Assistant Attorney General of the U.S. said. Democrats argue that this strains credibility because they had approved these lines, and Gavin Newsom of California is weighing multiple options for how the state can redraw its lines to counter the Texas GOP. It's a race to the bottom, said a Democratic congressman from California, but they've sort of forced the conversation. I think you can understand why California and some other places feel like they've got no choice but to consider something like this. But they can't, because most of the other states, including California, have redistricting commissions that draw their districts. And that's built into state law, and California, it's built into the state constitution. So they can initiate a redistricting process in response to Texas, but it can't possibly be finished in time for the 2018 election. In fact, it can't even be 28 election. In fact, the 26 election. In fact, it can't even be proposed until then. So they can't do that. The problem is that they've signaled their dissent, that they're on board, even if their initial preference is to adhere to an independent redistricting commission. Congressman Torres said the New York laws would make the process tricky, but he's pushing for it all the same. New York is more complicated because of the state constitution, but if Republicans are going to exhaust every means of building political power, we should reciprocate. Ask if Kathy Hochul is considering it. She said Hochul is closely monitoring redistricting developments in Texas and any potential implications that may have. It's painfully clear the Republicans are doing this. They know that they might lose the majority next year, said the head of the Democrats' campaign arm. So the Democrats are scrambling with their own laws in New York, Illinois, and California.
Their hair's on fire.
To try to change their district lines so they can offset the change in Texas's district lines. But one of the problems they face is that, as I reported earlier, 47% of the American voters say they're going to vote Republican and 42% Democratic in the upcoming congressional election. And nothing's going to alter that. If anything, it'll continue and grow. And they won't be able to disguise a Trump majority in the House.
Something that's not growing is the IRS. They're going to be saying bye-bye very soon. 25% of IRS employees are gone. Under Trump, the IRS workforce has decreased by 25,000, over 25%. Bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, is that something or what?
Yeah, that's something. Now, President Trump scolded European leaders Friday, saying they need to get their act together when it comes to unfettered immigration. We're speaking to reporters after landing in Glasgow, Scotland. Trump touched on some of his upcoming trade initiatives and responded by saying that Europe had to fix its strategy. I'll say two things to Europe. Stop with the windmills. You're ruining your countries. I mean, that's it. It's so sad. You fly over and you see some of these windmills all over the place, ruining your beautiful fields, valleys, and killing your birds. If they're stuck in oceans, ruining your oceans. But this was the key thing. When it came to immigration, Trump said the message that needed to be said. He said Europe is playing with fire by letting millions of immigrants in who don't share their values. There's a couple of things I could say, but on immigration, you better get your act together. You're not going to have Europe anymore. You have to get your act together. As you know, last month, we had nobody entering our country, and we took out a lot of bad people that were there under Biden. But you're allowing it to happen to your country, and you've got to stop this horrible invasion that's happening to many countries in Europe. Some leaders have not let it happen, and they're not getting proper credit. Immigration is killing Europe, Trump added. And that's because Hungary and Poland and the Czech Republic and a bunch of Eastern European countries have stopped immigration into their countries. And the European Union says you're not allowed to do that under the terms of the EU. And there's a big split going on in the EU over this, over whether these countries will be permitted to self-immolate. Unbelievable. Now, of course, with all of this going on, the Democrats have absorbed their worst ratings in decades.
Right. The new survey finds that 63% of voters hold an unfavorable view of the Democratic Party, the highest share in journal polls dating to 1990 and 30 percentage points higher than the 33% who hold a favorable view. Worst in decades.
And we talked a lot in the last shows about the fears that tariffs would cause inflation in the United States. But the fact is that U.S. corporations are absorbing most of the tariff hit and not passing it on to their consumers. The U.S. has collected $55 billion in extra tariffs this year, and corporate America is largely shouldering the bill. Trump's new levies, which have pushed the country's tariffs to the highest levels in decades, are typically paid by importers when goods reach U.S. ports. So there's little mystery about who makes the first payment. It's often a manufacturer, logistics, or customs broker, or in some case, the retailer itself that ordered the shipment. But economists and others have been watching for signs of who will ultimately bear the cost. Will it be foreign suppliers by cutting prices on the front end, or American consumers by paying higher prices at the checkout stand? Or would the U.S. businesses sit in between and shoulder the burden? It's becoming increasingly clear that U.S. businesses, from General Motors to Nike to the local florist, are absorbing most of the costs for now. In a competitive market, a company that hikes prices would lose market share to a rival that keeps prices steady. Many companies are reluctant to raise prices until they absolutely must, until they know their ever-changing tariffs are sticking around. In some cases, companies have said they plan to raise prices in the months to come. But some stability could be on the horizon. This week, the U.S. struck a deal with Japan for 15% tariffs on imported goods, and it's possible to cut a deal of 15% with Europe. And there are signs that some foreign suppliers, particularly Chinese products, now carrying an extra 30% tariff, have trimmed some prices to help out. Inflation has begun to pick up for some tariffed goods, including furniture, toys, and clothes, but so far they've been very mild. The June inflation reading rose from 2.4 to 2.7, slower than everybody expected. U.S. firms are still footing most of the tariff bill and have yet to pass more than a fraction of the cost to consumers. General Motors said this week they had paid more than $1 billion in tariffs on automobile imports in the second quarter. The company hasn't implemented wide-scale price increases in response to the tariffs.
They have not.
So the American companies are understanding that the U.S. market share is what's more important to them than the short-term profits. And they're trimming their short-term profits because they want to preserve their market share.
Right, and keep it tight. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the indictment of Adam Schiff. Schiff for brains.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to our 20-hour show, condensed into 2 hours.
Right.
The Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
So the indictment of Adam Schiff, his Trump talking. Adam Schiff is a thief. He should be prosecuted just like they tried to prosecute me and everyone else. The only difference is we were totally innocent and it was all a giant hoax, President Trump declared on Truth Social. In his post, President included a screenshot of a signed notarized affidavit from Schiff in which the senator swore Maryland property was his principal resident. Yet Schiff also claims that his luxury condominium in Los Angeles is a primary residence. So where's he going? Schiff in interviews downplayed the lawsuit. Of course he did. The dispute is deeply rooted in long-standing political hostility between Trump and Schiff. Trump allies say these lawsuits are legitimate efforts to hold Schiff accountable for actions undermining his public trust and targeted. These allegations, while not new, have gained renewed attention amid Trump's legal offenses, fueling debate over Schiff's credibility and ethical standings.
Schiff is the senator from California.
Schiff for brains.
Right. Yeah. Now, Trump is creating a new Schedule G, as in George, for civil service reform. During the campaign, he said he would create a Schedule F, and that has been created. Now he's adding a Schedule G. In line with his approach to federal government hiring during his second term, an emphasis will be placed on loyalty, with the classification providing another chance for the president to recruit people who ally with his political and policy agenda.
Sure.
He's hiring his people.
Yeah, and he should. People get mad at, Democrats go, how he could do that? What are you talking about?
The Congress has recognized that effective government administration requires accepting some positions from the competitive service based on their confidential policy determining, policy making, or policy advocating character. There is, however, no accepted service for scheduled non-career positions. The executive order follows a similar action in January, which reforms federal government rules for policy career employees. It's called Schedule F. Mm-hmm. So what he's doing basically is he's taking thousands of at-will of employees who he can't fire because they're protected by civil service and shifts them to at-will employees. The rule empowers federal agencies to swiftly remove employees in policy-influencing roles for poor performance, misconduct, corruption, or subversion of presidential directives without lengthy procedural hurdles. These employees will keep their competitive status and not required to personally or politically support the president, but must faithfully influence the law and administration policies. It will serve America's needs by focusing on implementing administration policies. President Trump believes creating non-career Schedule G positions, meaning at-will positions, will enhance government efficiency and accountability and improve services provided to taxpayers by increasing the horsepower for agency implementation of administrative policies. Now, Trump has also taken a very bold and important action that we'll all probably be seeing in our drugstores ourselves. He has gotten drug companies to discount prices in their direct sales to the consumers. In all other news broadcasts, this will be the number one item. Recent actions by the Trump administration include persuading manufacturers to start offering blockbuster drugs directly to consumers at a 40% discount from list price. 40% discount.
Wow.
For example, Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer have announced that they will directly sell their blood thinner Eliquis to patients with prescriptions who lack adequate insurance at a discounted cash price starting now. The price of $346 per month would represent a 40% reduction from the list price of $606.
That's a lot of money anyway.
This direct-to-consumer initiative is being launched via the Eliquis 360 support digital platforms. The move comes among pressure from the Trump administration to reduce drug prices and threats of tariffs again, on imported pharmaceuticals. Its attempt to bypass the traditional middleman, such as pharmacy benefit managers and insurers, to lower drug costs. The initiative follows similar steps taken by Nordisk and Eli Lilly, which also offer direct-to-consumer platforms for certain medications. So, amazing what Trump is doing.
40%, almost half.
Now, this next story is also very important. One of the things in the BBB, the Big Beautiful Bill that passed, is it contained a major victory for school choice advocates. It set up a program where private school tuition can be subsidized through tax credits for donations to nonprofit scholarship granting organizations. In other words, in these states, the Republicans set up a scholarship fund, nonprofit scholarship fund, to pay tuition to pro-choice schools. And the crux of the debate is that public school advocates, teachers' unions, argue that such a program will hurt public education, siphon money to private schools. Left-wing teachers' unions have decried voucher programs as obscene betrayal of working families. But school choice advocates say vouchers will help families give them more options outside their neighborhood schools, an issue especially important to parental rights advocates who say that parents should be able to move their children out of failing schools.
Sure.
There'll be a lot of pressure on blue states not to opt in. In other words, in this bill, each state can decide, is it going to receive extra federal funds for charter schools or will it not? It doesn't have the option to use the money in any other way. You either take the money for charter schools or you leave the money on the table. And the pressure is going to be in blue states like New York and Connecticut and New Jersey. Are they going to take advantage of the money, or are they going to turn it away and turn down the money because it would help their charter schools? Democratic governors will face pressure from school associations, including teachers' union, to opt out of the new federal tax credit. On the other hand, states are usually reluctant to turn down federal money, and ultimately about 40 states, including a number of red ones, have expanded Medicaid. Spokespeople for several Democratic governors told the Wall Street Journal they're reviewing the voucher programs, and others did not respond for comment by time of publication. The provision allowing the federal government to financially back private schools was passed after decades of effort from conservatives and school choice advocates. It specifically allows taxpayers to redirect a portion of their tax bill to these tax-exempt groups. Essentially, taxpayers who donate to these groups would receive federal tax credits of up to $1,700, and then the scholarship entity would use stipends to families for private school tuition and other permitted education-related expenses. Families will be able to receive scholarships if their income is not greater than 3 times that of the median income in the area in which they live. So this is going to be a big issue in the New Jersey governor's race that's coming up in the next few months. Is New Jersey going to take this federal money or not? Will the teachers' unions prevail, and will the Jersey politicians not take advantage of the billions of dollars the federal government is offering because it's tied to school choice programs? The program will cost $26 billion through 34, and true school choice advocates say there must be a large-scale marketing campaign to make taxpayers aware of the program. And that marketing campaign should begin with a vote for Citarelli in New Jersey for governor, so that New Jersey will take advantage of this money.
And by the way, when we get back, let's get Sandra on. She's on from New Jersey, and she wants to talk about Citarelli.
Absolutely.
When we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
And we happen to have Sandra on,
We do.
and
We'll
we were
get to
just
it in a
talking
second.
about Citarelli. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
Hello, both of you. Look, you know how I feel about Jack Citarelli. He knows the state inside out, and he's not even governor yet. But why I'm calling today, it's very, very important. I learned this week, and not enough people know, that his opponent, Mickey Sherrill, endorsed Mandani. Now, look, birds of a feather.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, this is very big. You didn't know it, Brian Kilmeade didn't know it.
Cheryl
Rob
has endorsed
Esposito didn't know it.
Mandami. That's
right.
incredible.
She endorsed him. That's right. And we are in deep trouble if she wins and Mandami. We can kiss this whole tri-state area goodbye.
especially since there are so many entities controlled by the Port Authority that's governed jointly by New York and New Jersey. And if you have a communist governor of New Jersey, that could be very serious. This is fascinating. The real question for Cheryl, that's her name, right? Has been, is she far left or is she moderate? Is she centrist or is she crazy progressive? And she's been working hard to clean up her act and to try to act as if she's just a moderate Democrat and you can trust her.
Flip-flop now so she can get elected type of thing?
But in fact, this endorsement of Mamdani that I did not know about, thank you for telling us, Sandra, is huge because it signals that she is, in fact, a crazy left-wing loon who should not be the governor.
What's the name, Sandra, of the opponent?
Mickey Sherrill. Jack Citarelli. I love him. He has to be our governor. We will be so lucky to have him. I promise everybody that I'd vote for him, please. I mean it with all my heart.
Yeah, we have to do that.
Now,
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra. Columbia University has surrendered to Trump. It was one of the first targets of Trump, but Colombia has now agreed to pay the government more than $200 million and be monitored for its diversity practices to unlock federal funding that Trump froze. The university, which was the site of outspoken pro-Palestinian demonstrations last year, has made some Jewish students feel harassed, had already agreed to a multitude of demands.
Hold on. Made them feel harassed? No, they harassed them.
Were harassed.
Right, they were harassed.
Now, meanwhile, Harvard is in court trying to fight to hang on to its money without making changes. And this Columbia surrendering to Trump, I think, is a big deal. Meantime, we have more ratings of Democrats crashing.
Just 28% of Americans view the party favorably, according to the CNN poll. That's the lowest mark for Democrats in the entire history of CNN polling, going back over 30 years. The CNN poll is far from an outlier. Just 19% of voters' questions in the Quinnipiac University national poll give Democrats in Congress a thumbs up on how they're handling their duties, with 72 disapproving.
It's 19 to 72.
19.
Those aren't great ratings.
No, those are really good. That's all in one time low. That's the one low time since Quinnipiac University first began. The Democratic Party has been in the political wilderness since November's elections. Not only did the party lose power, but Republicans made gains among black, Hispanic, and younger voters, or traditional members of the Democratic Party's base. Since Trump's return to power earlier this year, an increasingly energized base of Democrats is urging party leaders to take a stronger stand in pushing back against the president's sweeping and controversial second-term agenda. Their anger is directed not only at Republicans, but at Democrats they feel aren't vocal enough in opposition to Trump.
The Wall Street Journal also reported that the economy has regained its economic swagger.
When President Trump slapped tariffs on the nations across the globe this spring, many economists feared higher prices and spending cuts would flatten the economy. Consumer sentiment collapsed. The S&P 500 stock index fell by 19% between February and April. The world held its breath and waited for the bottom to drop out. But that didn't happen. Now businesses and consumers are regaining their swagger, and evidence is mounting that those who held back are starting to splurge again. The stock market is reaching record highs. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index, which tumbled in April, is to its lowest reading in almost 3 years, has begun climbing again. Retail sales are up more than economists had forecast, and sky-high inflation hasn't materialized, at least not yet. We've been surprised again and again by consumers, said Jonathan Miller, senior U.S. economist at Barclay. In April, Miller predicted that the U.S. economy would likely go into recession this year. He now expects it to keep growing.
Now, we don't have time. We have only about 5 minutes left. Do we have a break coming, or are we?
No
okay.
break. We're coming.
Go to 29, talk about Iran.
They missed the nuke sites
Yeah.
destroyed. This is great. Iran's foreign minister confirmed this week that U.S. airstrikes left the country's nuclear facilities destroyed, but said Iran will continue to enrich uranium. Of course they will. This comes about a month after the facilities were wiped out. Our facilities have been seriously damaged, the extent of which is now under evaluation.
So the Jerusalem Post released a lengthy story about how Mossad attacked Iran.
Oh, they're
And this reads like a spy novel. Tell them about that.
The Mossad was at the forefront of Israel's assassination of 9 out of 13 top Iranian military officials and around a dozen Iranian nuclear scientists in June. It was also deeply involved in aspects of targeting Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile installations, even if, as a rule, those dropping the bomb or pulling the trigger were Israeli Air Force pilots. Of course, the Jerusalem Post has limits on what they can reveal, but a number of developments have already taken place in recent weeks, and additional details have come out about the Mossad's June operation, which could serve as an ongoing menu for future missions. First of all, following the New York Times report, there's been a wave of media attention to Iranian claims that many of the recent mysterious explosions and fires have broken out across the Islamic Republic in the last 2 weeks. However, on June 25th, Mossad chief issued to the public a rare video excerpt of an address to Mossad agents involving sensational operations against Iran. Appearing almost to taunt Tehran, Barney, that same guy I'm talking about, told his Mossad agents, "We will continue to be there like we have been there." The simple meaning of this guy's words was that despite Iranian efforts to catch Mossad agents after June 13 to 24, war and the increased risk of being caught during this period of purging into Iran, Israel's spy agency still has and will continue to have agents operating in the Islamic Republic. These guys are going at it. In addition, the report disclosed Aerospace Force chief guy, can't say his name, forget that. They're wiping all these guys out. They're going after these guys. Next, the report said that the malware was implanted into Tehran City. This is great.
The guy in charge of air operations for the Iranian government, whatever his name, has been killed.
Right.
Israelis called him the smartest, most dangerous man in Iran. And he was tricked by Mossad into attending a meeting with his deputies.
That was great.
During which they were assassinated.
That was great.
The phone call inviting them to the designated location was determined to be from a fake source, but was so well managed that he and his cohort were fooled into voluntarily walking into the trap.
I gotta love it.
Next, the malware was embedded into Tehran's city security cameras, which located where this guy was.
That's beautiful. Dick Morris, this has been an unbelievable show. It's an honor to be here with you. What a show.
What a show. I mean, if you don't listen to the show, how the hell do you know what's going on?
Oh, my God, it was great.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. Tell your friends to tell your friends.
Tell your enemies.
Yeah, that's more like it.
They should see.
Bye-bye. It's unbelievable. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?